Hello all, my name is Brian Baptista. I'm really happy to be part of the DOC conference and give you some insights on how international governments are currently thinking about the whole transformation elements about digital. So it's quite obvious that COVID-19 has changed a lot of the ways that we are thinking about the whole transformation about digital, going from perhaps non-digital to digital, or going from some elements of digital into more digital. The whole thing about COVID-19 has moved it, as I just mentioned. And I'm going to give you a bit of insights on some of the schools and what they have done, some of the countries, what they have done, and some of the critical elements that countries have been thinking about during this process. Luckily, we're working with children and students, they tend to learn very fast. The great thing about this situation is that children are also forced to use digital solutions. So are teachers, and multiple teachers and students are telling us that, hey, you know what? I've never realized that Teams, Google Meet, and all these Zoom and all these elements were so easy. And now I can use them much better than I did before. Everyone is forced basically to have digital competencies in a very good way, because you're forced to do it and you cannot choose anything else. So the thing is that the school system will adapt, and all these elements and barriers towards actually doing digital transformation are kind of being forced right now, which is not always positive in a general sense, but in a tactical sense and a short-term sense, it's actually working out really well. One of the things that I see is that a lot of people, especially in the governments, are trying with a good heart to make sure everything is crisp and clear and perfect, and the solution is the best possible thing. And there's no doubt that that's the way to go. You need to hire the right people. You need to have the right people that can actually run the digital transformation in the smoothest possible way. But as I said again, the fact is that there is a natural speed and urgency that's required for the current situation, and you also need people that can take decisions and get stuff out there fast as possible. That also requires a budget, like I mentioned. One thing that's happening right now is also that there's a lot of emerging technologies out there. So technologies that the schools wouldn't naturally adapt. But right now, governments are looking at any solutions that give accessibility. So this is also one of the ways for you to go out as a government to have a look at what emerging technologies that are out there and start doing some testing. Now, the fact is there's always a balance between being ready with a solution and actually being rolled out at a national level. There's two completely different things. There's support elements and all these things that you need to think about, but the governments that have done this really well is that they've looked at an emerging technology such as AI, for example. They've adapted it very fast using the experts of the companies, and they've rolled it out in a quite fast process. That's been really effective. One thing that's important is that no one has been in this situation before. So the fact is there's no experts out there that actually know exactly how this is going to work. So the thing is that you might as well just start with experimenting. One of the organizations I work with is T4.education. It's an organization that works with conferences online. We just finalized the biggest ever online conference for international teachers, and we get a lot of insights from the teachers in regards to that. So one of the things that they're really talking about is that after the lockdown, they came back with higher skills in terms of digital elements because they were forced to it. Now, force is not great. No one really likes to be forced. But since this was a force majeure element where something outside forced the teachers to learn, it really benefited them in terms of knowing what to do when they come back. That's not said that they are not asking for further growth and development. So this is one of the areas that we see international governments are really focusing on. So how can we further educate our teachers to handle a situation like this, but just also in general, how do we get this to work? So we see training programs coming up, and these training programs go in parallel to the digital programs that are running as well. And we've seen that them being very beneficial also to ensure sustainability of whatever learning that comes into play. One of the first elements that a lot of countries are looking at is the element of should we? And the next element of that is can we? So the should we has been deeply impacted by the situation with COVID-19, because the should we is suddenly been something that we have to do. So it's no longer a question of having a choice to actually figure out if you want to do it. It's a question of actually getting solutions in place the fastest possible. The school lockdowns, the elements of students not going to school, cannot go to school, has just deeply impacted in the current situation. So what we really need to figure out right now is what are the solutions that can actually make children not lose out on school. So one of the things that I really see working is that governments that are working with existing players, that existing companies that have value propositions that can work, getting that up and running in the fastest possible way to be part of these digital platforms is the way to go, because that's just the fastest, the most accurate, the best possible, most sustainable solution. Obviously, it costs some money, no doubt about that, and governments need to be aware of that. But even going into a big development, local development process is going to take money and time, and this is again time we do not have. We've seen multiple platforms, like in the Middle East. We have Middle Eastern countries that are building platforms, digital platforms, and are actually going to put out procurement processes to get international companies to bid on solutions that are perhaps not 100% fit, but a 90% fit or an 85% fit will do right now. And then once it's up and running, we can easily get, that's the way that they're thinking, we can easily get these solutions to be even better. But right now we need to give accessibility. Governments out there are risking themselves a little bit because they open themselves up to criticism if they choose a certain way of handling digital transformation during COVID-19. There's no doubt about that. But the fact is, there's no time to waste. We need solutions up and running now. So the fact is that governments realize this, and it's just a matter of having to accept that that's the current situation.
At T4 conferences, one of the things we do is we work with several ministries worldwide. And these ministries, we've asked them several questions during this process of COVID-19 in terms of finding out how they're handling the situation. And because of that, we made a small survey and asked them a few questions that may interest you. So we found out that 37 out of 39 ministries have started digital platform projects after COVID-19. It does not mean that they haven't started projects before, had projects before. It simply means that COVID-19 has triggered a new digital platform, and these are very, very often national projects, meaning that they're looking at how to make sure to give an educational proposition to all the children in the country. We also asked them a question about their abilities to launch these platforms during COVID-19. And 21 out of 39 ministries have not been able to launch anything, basically. The rest of the ministries have either launched some parts of the platform or none at all. We've also asked them a question about if they are developing their own education solutions or they are procuring them from the outside. And we've seen that 38 out of 39 ministries try to develop their own education solutions, but this is a big reason for why they're not able to get out their solutions or their platforms to the children. We've seen that 38 out of 39 ministries have started up new education projects specifically for COVID-19. These are not only platform projects, but they could be projects of all kind of different setups. We've seen that 39 out of 39, which means all the ministries are battling internal political challenges with the development of an education proposition for COVID-19. It's just that everyone wants to get this really right. It's a national project typically, and there's a lot of influences from different parties, which actually means that it's really difficult to actually get something out to the children. And the problem here is that it's really the children that are suffering right now. The teachers are suffering because they're not able to actually access the education solutions to move on in terms of their education levels and their classes. So it's really a big challenge. And this is one of the times where the greater good is incredibly important, because basically what's happening is that these political elements are hindering the kids for accessing the solutions. So one of the things you could say is, and we can see that in several ministries, is that some of them are now realizing that this is just the time to get the platforms out and then do optimization as we go, because that just makes a lot more sense. Accessibility is critical right now. So most of the governments are thinking, let's just get started. Once we get started, we can refine after that.
My ending remarks is just to sum up a bit. The thing is that governments now know that being ready for digital transformation as a country is just not ever going to happen. So the fact is that you need to take steps. And one of the steps has been forced to us right now because of COVID-19. So the thing is that the countries just get started. They source the solutions because that's a critical element. They also choose to go with the children that have access and internet connectivity and make sure to give the rest of the children the best possible solutions in the fastest possible way. But they do not wait until everyone can get the same accessibility, because if they do that, it's going to put a big strain on the education system. The last thing I just want to say is a big thank you to the organizers. Thanks a lot for having me here, and have a great day.
Készült Magyarország kormánya megbízásából az Európai Unió támogatásával.